So I am your Gen X host, Christy Ritz-King.
I'm your Gen Z host, Faith King.
And we are here today to talk about, if you haven't guessed yet, comparison. I love the phrase comparison is the thief of joy. And I have noticed it in my own life recently and thought it would be a really good conversation to have between the two of us because I can remember in my 20s it also being a problem. And I know in my 50s it's still a problem, but it's taken on a whole new world with social media and, the curated lifestyles that we see online. So I was curious, I'm in a new place, a place of growth, but she's also in a new place, a place of growth that is recognizable to me. So I thought it would be interesting to have a conversation about comparison and how that enters into how we feel about our own lives. She was saying she woke up today feeling really great about herself, but that isn't always the case. And so I had asked, well, does it matter sort of the inputs you're getting, or is that just sort of like how you wake up during the day? So yeah, let's talk about that.
I think because as you were talking, I find that I don't compare myself too much to people on social media. I mean, you get it like a little bit, but you guys did a good job growing up. And I feel like my peer group kind of knows things on social media are fake. Like they're not real. We're real right now on this podcast, but they're a highlight reel for somebody else's life. Like no one's putting up there every single day on social media. And if they are, it's monetized. Like there's money behind it.
Sure.
Whereas sometimes I find myself comparing to people in my real life, or honestly, the biggest thing that I am guilty of is I will compare myself to you and dad at my age.
Mm.
And that will be what gets me is that like...
That's so interesting.
We
were a hot mess at your age.
And but this is what we talked about this in our first episode is I'm like, my parents maybe were a hot mess, but they were... It's like the grass is always greener. Like, I'm sure you look at my life and you're like, wow, Faith has this career that she really loves and like all these things. And she's got these friends and she's got this job. And I look at your life at 24 and I'm like, oh, my mom got married. That's awesome. Like you got married, you owned a house, you lived in like a cool town. Like
that is true. We did have, there were some good, I'm not going to lie. Like we were, 24 and we owned a row home in Baltimore. Like that was pretty freaking great.
And the milestones are different now. And it feels like I have a set of friends who are moving into a townhouse. They don't own it. They're still running it. But I just talked to them and they're moving into like a bigger house with bigger space and a little backyard and like all of these like kind of adult things. And when I talked to her, she was like, I hate moving. Like she was not in like a good spirit because she was like, oh my God, all of our stuff is in boxes.
Yeah.
And I haven't, she thanked me for calling. She was like, I haven't even had the brain space to reach out to the people I like talking to. Like, thank you for calling because I wouldn't have spoken to you for weeks.
Well, that's the reality of the situation instead of, as you said, like the curated, like, here's my new home, that you would have seen on Instagram. That's the like difference between a real person and their experiences. And so you're getting the full picture. So the comparison game isn't as hard.
Yeah.
And I talk about my 20s and owning that home. I think we were almost we were probably 25 when we bought that house. And yes, looking back on it, can I say like it was awesome? But I distinctly remember in the moment thinking pretty routinely, like, we've made a terrible mistake. We should not own anything. We should not. We moved to a city that neither one of us knew anything about. We ended up with great friends and great, equity to be able to sell it and buy a house to have kids in and things like that. Like it turned out okay, but there was a lot of time in there. And from a comparison perspective, I was this like married lady in a house where my friends were sort of like out partying and traveling and doing like cool things, like going to graduate school in different places. And so I had I had plenty of time where I thought, oh, compared to everybody else, I'm not sure I am doing it right. In the moment, by myself, we loved our life. But then when I would look at everybody else, I'd be like, well, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe this is a different thing. I should have done this instead. I should have, taught in Europe or whatever the thing was that I thought was the cool thing to do that I wasn't doing. So I'm not sure in the moment I thought it was all great either.
And you and I have talked about that, like, because I feel like for me, the comparison becomes decision making as well. Like, I have a friend who by the end of this year is moving to New York, and I keep going back and forth of like, should I go to New York? And no. And not because I like we just had a whole conversation about it where it's like, hey, like, you can't, like, what if your life?
Mhm.
Like, but I feel like that's more of the comparison that I do is I don't compare myself to other people. I compare myself to, like, a fake version of me that's making different choices. Like, I compare myself to, like, who would if I had stayed in the New Jersey area, would things
Yeah.
be different? If
Yeah.
I had, scraped all my money together and moved to New York, would things be different? I kind
Sure.
of, I more or less put down roots in Minnesota in a
Mhm.
great way
Quickly. Yeah.
quickly. Like, I have a good, like, connection of friends. I have a couple jobs that I really like. Like, I've kind of established, at least for now, established myself here.
Yeah.
And there are moments where I'm like, oh, it would actually now be really hard to pick up and go to New York.
Sure.
And there are moments where I'm like, should I just not have it? Like, should I have just gotten, like, 3 different part-time jobs and never seen anybody and put money away
Yeah.
and moved, got the first cheapest apartment in New York and gone. But then also, and this is something else that we talked about,
Yeah. Hold
what do
on.
you
Pause.
oh, sorry.
Pause. Because I think there's something to that of comparing yourself to, as you said, a fake version of you or the person that you would be if you made different choices.
Mhm.
That's different than what I was thinking from like, but I do wonder if it's triggered by that. Like, if this friend wasn't moving to New York, would you be considering whether I should have moved to New York or not? Or if that wasn't put in your head, we just watched the Knicks win the national championship, and
Mhm.
all of us were like, "We've made a terrible decision.
Mhm.
We should never have moved away from the city. We should never have moved." Now, mind you, we didn't live in the city. We have much more access to the city and city events than we ever did when we lived near New York. Now, that said, we spent a significant amount of time in New York City, so we really took advantage of that. But my point is, if we hadn't had the Knicks in our face, we probably wouldn't have been the same type of homesick as we were this last week, being like, "Oh, that was our place. We used to be able." No, if we were there, we wouldn't have gone. We
Oh,
wouldn't have gone to the
are you
parade.
kidding me?
We might not have even watched the game.
I'm sorry, trying to get into Penn Station
Yeah, yeah,
during Knicks playoff? I'd rather die.
yeah. So, it's
Mm.
all that I think is human nature too, to see like, oh, I see what this person's doing, and what if I had done that? Would things be different than they are right
Mhm.
now, or better than they are right now? To sort of pick the best part. You in that sense, we're almost curating our own lives a little of like
Mhm.
this snapshot. Is it should I have done it that way? So I wonder if she wasn't going to New York, would you even be considering that right now?
I mean, yes and no. Probably not as much as I'm thinking about it right now. And also, I think there's such comfort in the familiar.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's so crazy to say, but like the New York area, that's an area that I know,
Yeah.
and so it would kind of be it like we're hitting the summertime now, and I'm having a bit of a like, what do people do in the summer out here? What do you do during the
Yeah.
summer if there's not a beach to go to?
Yeah.
And
For sure.
so there's moments like that where I'm like, that's what's making me homesick, and that's what's making me kind of do the comparison game is like, oh, well, if I lived in New York,
Yeah.
I could go to the beach.
Yeah.
And I feel like that the comparison stems from the uncomfortability of a new life.
Yeah.
Is like, I don't,
Growing pains.
yeah, I don't know. And I do still, it's not like I'm sitting alone at my house being like, me all the time. Um,
As evidenced by the fact that we're just recording this podcast for the
yeah,
first time, I haven't laid eyes on her for longer than
this is
like
the
4 minutes.
this is the longest conversation we've had in weeks.
Yeah, in weeks. So she's definitely got plenty of a life out here.
Yes. And it's I feel like in the newness of my life out here, I still have moments of, oh, it would be so much easier if I just I went back to what I knew. Like
Sure.
that. And yeah, but I think the comparison, it's more so the comparison to like a fake version of me.
Yeah, it's a what ifs versus and I don't know that that is different. I think it's just I'm considering that thought process triggered by comparison.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that doesn't come up. So first, I think growth of any kind. I mean, I've worked with people who've been in like very obviously terrible relationships and they still have moments when they get out of them of thinking, did I make the right choice getting out of it? Because there is such comfort in the known. And so even when it's the right decision, it can be really so uncomfortable to not know that sometimes we feel like we want to go back to the thing we knew, even if it was really bad or it wasn't as great as we're making it. You know, I was never a New York Knicks fan, but for some reason this week I feel like I need to go back to New York.
Yeah.
So like, it isn't that I necessarily want to go back there or that I even miss there in the same way that it feels like. It just feels like, as you just said, I know it. It's comfortable. I have access to it. And I will say one other thing that your dad and I always talk about is that we feel really proud of ourselves that we have not always, we have tried to not do the what if or like live in the, like when we move, like we are all in to the place that we go. There's a reason why we were in New York City so much and at the beach so much and did all the things that we could do there because it was like, well, we live here now. We're going to lay down roots and get to know it. And we tried not to look back to say like, did we do the right thing? This is what we have now. So let's do it. I'm having a harder time doing that these days. But that type of comparison has not always been an issue for me because I try to be like where I am at the time.
Yeah. And I think because as you said it, I was thinking of this point that this is the first time in my life where there aren't external growth mile markers. Like, so like that is also eating away at me is like,
how do you know if you're doing it?
Yeah. And you're, I'm in a show right now and and I am feeling myself grow while I'm in the show. I feel like I'm stretching my acting muscles and also like I'm establishing like who am I as a professional in this industry? How do I carry myself as a professional in this industry? How do I interact with people? How do I show up? And that's good and hard. Like you spend a lot of time. It feels a little navel gazy to be like, oh my gosh, how am I presenting in a space? And I think it's good to be thinking about that because you should be concerned with how you present yourself, particularly in a professional setting.
And I think your generation is maybe one of the first to do that consciously. Like I don't know that as a, it was like hammered into us what to do as Gen X. Like, you do this, you talk this way, you dress this way, you go this way. But I'm not sure anybody ever said, consider how you show up professionally. It was just like, here are the things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And you guys don't have it's interesting because I think you were raised on rubrics in school. Like you always knew what you were supposed to do to get the A. And so that's really been taken away from you in a way that's different from my generation. We didn't know what the heck we were supposed to be doing. We just showed up and did the best we could because someone told us to do that. Whereas you guys, people have been telling you what to do all along, and now they're like, go, but figure out yourself how you're showing up professionally and what you're doing professionally.
Yeah. And
you, for the first time in your life, you don't have a rubric.
I don't have a rubric. And that makes the growth feel worse. Like I wish that there are days where I'm like, I was talking about
because you don't know.
Yeah.
Are you growing in the right direction?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. And because that then can make why I compare myself to you guys is that like the external mile markers are so nebulous once you graduate from school that.
Well, especially in your in creative careers, I won't say just yours, but in creative careers, you don't have a like Dad. He always knew what the thing was to get to the next level of whatever career or whatever company he worked for. He always knew like if I do these 6 bullet points, and if he didn't know, he asked.
Yeah,
he would be like, at my review, tell me what I need to do to get to the next level. No, yours is so subjective, first of all, but also it's like, well, are you writing? Are you directing? Are you acting? Are you,
And I find for me when I feel like I love my job and when I feel like I'm like, oh, I don't super know how I feel about my job. I don't have a rubric. This is the first time in my life I'm not performing for a grade.
Yeah.
And I don't have a rubric. We were talking about like, nobody's telling me good job anymore. Like you got cast. That's the good job.
Yeah.
And
the affirmation is getting the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then what I find myself doing is I'm like, well, my career is stressing me out. I can start comparing other parts of my life. So like because I'm like, yeah, oh, sure. My parents' careers probably stressed them out, but my parents were married. Like that's a mile marker. Or like, my friends' careers are stressing them out, but my friends just rented a townhouse. That's a mile marker. And suddenly you look and you're like, well, my career is stressing me out and I'm not anywhere close to getting married and I'm not anywhere close to having my own place. Suddenly what do I have? And then it starts to look like all of the great things that you're doing start to look like you're not doing anything right. Or that's how it starts to feel to me, is that one thing is growth in a good way, but because there's no rubric, doesn't necessarily always feel like growth in a good way. And so I start to look for other positive, like, these are signs you're doing life correctly. Yeah. And based off of, in comparison to other people in my life, when I don't hit those signs, I'm like, oh, well, then I must just stink.
And so I wonder if you turned all of that energy into just you, again, speaking of navel gazing, into just you and tried to gauge, is this thing making me happy? Do I feel satisfied with this thing? Am I okay with this thing? And the answer is not going to be yes to all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I used to work with clients, when I was a coach, I would do this like wheel of life thing, and you would fill in sort of where you were satisfactorily in all these different areas. And then you sort of look at your line, and if it was a perfect circle around, great, you're managing everything. Nobody ever got a perfect circle. But you could see sort of where you were off. Like if you're, and sometimes that's okay, because if you're way up here with your career and the rest of the stuff is sort of falling behind a little, okay, well, take notice of that. Like, don't ignore that you're ignoring all these other things for too long, but also recognize, like, okay, my energy right now is for this. And I think instead of looking out to other markers that you think other people think makes you successful, what do you think makes you successful? And are you feeling good about these things? I wonder if it would be different, if you would feel differently if you did that instead of.
Yeah. And there are days where I do. This is the other thing. There are days where I'm like, everything's great. Like
this morning.
And we talk, and like last night I had a meeting, and then I went to my everyday job, and then I went to an audition, and then I went and got drinks with friends, and I drove home in the car that I own. And I was like, this is the greatest day. I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything right. And today I woke up and I checked my credit card statement. I was like, eesh. How am I going to
drinks are free.
Those drinks are free. But it's just, monthly and looking at like, how much money am I spending? And it never feels like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then you look at it and suddenly it's like, geez, please. And so there's just, it's really, every day is a different day. There are days where I'm like, I'm doing it great. And I'm managing it all. And then there are days where I'm like, I'm never going to get ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's also the other thing too, is that it doesn't feel like I'm failing necessarily.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm never going to get beyond where I am right now.
Sure.
I'm never going to be, the anxiety, the drama of it is like, I'm never going to be able to move out. I'm never going to be able to get a better job. I'm never going to be like all the things that are things that I like about my life. There are times where I'm like, well, I don't like this one specific aspect, so that means everything has to change. And it's like,
well, and I wonder if that plays into also then, if you're feeling that way, then that makes sense that it would lead to, well, what if I made different choices? Would I still be feeling this way?
Yes.
Rather than, instead, I wonder if you just were able to say, well, so two things. One, I thought of this when you were talking. Your aunt a long, long time ago, offhandedly, was like, life is long, sort of in the prospect of like, I don't need to make this decision today, or I don't need it to look like this today in order for it to someday look like this. And for me, that was sort of revolutionary, because everybody in my life dies young. And so I not everybody in my life, but my growing up experience was that people died young. And so life was long is not a sentence that I ever contemplated until she said that. And since then, I've really been trying to use that as like a life philosophy of like, at this moment, if everything is not in place, it does not mean that it won't be in 4 or 5 years. That said, you have to have some kind of plan. Like, you can't just hope for it to get to fall into place. But it doesn't mean that because, you woke up and your credit card bill was high, that you'll never make enough money to be able to move out. Like, that's not how it goes. But I think our brains are wired to think exactly that.
Yeah.
And so if you can remember life is long in that, you compare yourself to your dad and I'm always like, we were too young. We were too young. We got married at 24. We didn't have a kid until 28. The one best decision we ever made is that we were married for almost 5 years before she was born. And I think that was literally the best decision we made because we got to be young and stupid longer than we would have if we had to bring a kid into the world at 24. So when you compare yourself, I'm like, don't do what we did. And again, I have zero regrets. Obviously, we're still married, but
what a way to announce that.
We had a lot of friends that were not married yet and had a ball. And we're concentrating on their careers at that point, or we're figuring out how to save enough money to move out of their parents' house, or all the things you're still doing. And then they met the person they were supposed to be with, but they didn't lose time doing the other things first.
Yeah.
And I think that can be what it feels like sometimes. You're like, oh God, I have this limited amount of time, and if I'm not here by then it's not gonna. And that's the life is long part, I think.
Yeah.
It's like,
Dad said something when we were having a conversation that was like so eye-opening to me. 2 things. 1, there's a dad quote, and then there's a Stephen Sondheim quote. Sorry, I have an acting degree. Dad was like, when we were talking about choices, and he was like, hey, this is gonna sound insane. The choices you make right now have actually little to no bearing on your life in a year. And it is advice that could feel like pedantic, but I really appreciated it because I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Then who I am I don't like, it gave me permission to not be worried about who Faith will be in a year and just be focused on like right now, what do I want, which is super helpful. And then there's a Stephen Sondheim quote that says, the choice may have been mistaken, the choosing was not. And that's what I've been thinking about a lot is like, you have to, shout out Stephen Sondheim. But that I've been thinking like, you have to just like make a call. And like right now I'm making
make a damn decision.
And right now I think I am choosing, like we were talking about it. I just went to an audition that if I book that role, it means I am not in a position to maybe move out of your house by the end of the year. And that was initially the plan. But I think I'm making that choice because I'm like, look, I would rather perform than work to move out. I like our living situation. You guys are kind enough to continue to let me crash.
Yeah, and like I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she was like, I mean, it's not like you're like on her case. I'm like, we barely see her.
No.
She might as well be somebody who lives in a rented room in someone else's house. Like, we are not her parents. She does not live with her parents, other than I make her do a podcast every once in a while. She does not have any responsibilities.
You're still kind of buying my groceries. Like that's one thing that like I worry when I move out.
I would like it if she put her coffee cup in the sink. But other than that,
should get better about that. But
yeah, you definitely reverted to some childhood stuff.
100%. But yeah, it's definitely it's easy to look from the outside of your own life and focus on all of the things that you're quote unquote doing wrong. But then we had that conversation the other day where you both said we're not itching to have you out of here. Like you're not. And I've had a couple conversations with other people where I've kind of stated my situation and they've said, yeah, it's really hard to leave that right now. It's expensive to leave. The job market is awful. Like if you look at it from an objective perspective, I have a safe place to live and a steady job.
Yeah.
And I'm able to like pursue creative opportunities because of those things. And I have my own car. Like, and it's kind of sweet.
Here's the Gen X parent piece of it too, is that, you grew up with 2 creative parents who got quote unquote real jobs right out of college because that was what we were supposed to do. There was no, I mean, your dad even wanted to go to acting school, and his parents were like, no, that's not what we do. And I, had I my option, I would have been either on TV or writing for TV. And that wasn't something we did. So I became a teacher because I went to business school for 2 years and then was like, this is not who I am either. And then became a teacher. And so I don't know
The
about Dad.
most
We didn't
performative
consciously
real world job.
Exactly. Exactly. I got to read stories and act characters out and everything else. I don't know that Dad and I ever consciously talked about it, but I know in my mind, my whole goal of raising kids was create a space for them to be able to pursue what they want to pursue with, like, be their safety net so that they can go get creative jobs. So, you've wanted to do this since you could speak, basically. And so we were like, all right, we're going to do whatever it takes to be able to let her go try this. I can't afford an apartment in New York, but I can afford to house you here while you figure out your life in the theater in this way. We're going to push a little bit to, like, get an agent and get, do the professional things that you need to do. But we worked our butts off so that you could pursue a creative career because we did not have that luxury. And so, like, take advantage of that and understand that in some way, like, and I mean, I know you do understand what a privilege it is, but, like, rather than looking at it as some sort of, like, failure or I'm not even out of my parents' house yet, think of it as, like, I mean, Dad always calls himself your benefactor. So, think of it as, like, my artistic sponsors are housing me while I can pursue this career. Yes. So, it was a goal of ours to be able to provide that to you guys. And so if ever you feel bad about it, just be like, oh, it's my parent. I'm making my parents happy. So, and if you decided tomorrow you wanted to, go back and get a teaching degree or go back and get a degree in marketing or something because you're like, yeah, I'm kind of sick of this. That's also fine too. Like, there's no pressure to be the, creative hero that we need.
And that's the other life is long thing about it. Yeah. Is that my friends that are moving into a townhouse, my one friend is, I don't want to put her on blast. She's
a creative career.
She's a creative career, and she's looking for alternative jobs right now. And we have had conversations, she and I, where we have said, like, the minute this stops being fun, we're out.
Yeah. Said that about teaching too.
Because it's too hard for it to not be fun.
Yeah.
And what I'm learning, I just recently got back into acting after taking kind of a year of not doing it and thinking I was just going to write for a while. And boy, do I love acting. And I forgot how much I enjoy it, including, like, I love auditioning, which I never thought I would say.
Yeah.
Well, right now, I might wake up tomorrow and be like, never again. But
I was going to say, I can't. You were complaining about it like 2 weeks ago.
Well, hey, now that the audition is over, I'm like, I had a great time. But I think that too, of, like, don't compare yourself. Again, don't compare yourself to who you are in 5 years. That person might be totally different.
Yeah.
And
don't try to predict either.
And don't hold yourself to that. Don't hold yourself to the dreams you had when, like,
100%.
I think of that a lot, of, like, sometimes I am like, what would 13-year-old Faith want from me? And then I'm like, 13-year-old Faith would be like, I'm sorry, you're performing on stage for pay and you're auditioning at this theater and you're helping write a movie. Like, 13-year-old Faith would be like, and you got your braces off. Like, the things that are important to you as a child are so drastically not what's important to you as an adult. And so I think just acknowledging that, like, your dreams are allowed to change, and that doesn't mean that you have failed is.
Yeah. And I don't think that we started out this podcast with this in mind, but it's now seeming like the perfect way to end it. That this idea of comparison to anything other than where you are right in the moment doesn't serve you at all. Whether it's comparing to your old self, whether it's comparing to who you think you should be in the future, whether it's comparing to other people, so I guess the sort of way to wrap that up is, in the weeds of that, in the weeds of, like, oh, I'm not doing it right or whatever. If you can turn that, like, gaze inward and say, but how do I feel okay about what I'm doing in this moment right here? When I was training for yoga teacher training, we used to have this little thing above the door that said, be here now, meaning, like, whatever else is going on, you're here in this moment on this mat now. And I think of that in life too. Like, how are you in this moment? And if you can just focus on that rather than comparing it to any external or your own timeline of things, then we're all better off for it, myself included. So whether it's social media, real life friends, your own self, whatever, no more comparison, and instead focus on where you are and how you feel about that in the moment. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on.
Good.
Let's stop comparing and move on.
Yeah.
So we always like to end with, well, two things. We usually talk about what our wonder was this week, and then we do a reading, watching, listening to. Mm-hmm. And so I have a wonder. I don't have a lot of reading, watching, listening to, but I do have a wonder, which is my iced coffee. So I've been a little bit. Anybody who's spent any minute either on Instagram or on this podcast or anywhere knows that I was completely obsessed with the coffee shop that 2 of my 3 children ended up working at. They had an amazing iced coffee. They had amazing iced decaf, which no one does that. No one makes iced decaf coffee except Rook Coffee in New Jersey.
Mama County, New Jersey. And Mama County, New Jersey.
Everybody is like, oh, yeah, we can do a decaf Americano. That's not the same. That's espresso. That's not coffee. Anyway, I digress. I've been on the hunt for a good iced coffee since we've moved here. There are some passable ones. None of them are amazing. None of them are decaf, but I've started drinking caffeine again in an effort to have. So the other day, I went to the same place I've been going forever and decided to try a flavored, quote unquote, iced coffee of theirs. And it was delicious. So shout out to Foxy Pantry's coconut coffee. It was very good. But I have since decided to just make my own. Which Nespresso sells a coconut pod. And so I do that with just a little milk. And I mean, it looks like a lot of milk, but it really wasn't. Mm-hmm. I also discovered after 3 years of owning that machine that you can make cold foam in your Nespresso coffee thing. So
shout out Nespresso, by the way, if you want to sponsor this podcast. We are 2 coffee drinkers and we will clearly talk about you for free.
We go through those pods pretty quickly. Anyway, so my wonder this week has been making my own. I went out and bought myself a cute little cup because I'm like, if I'm going to make myself iced coffee every day, then I'm going to.
It's a nice cup too.
Yeah, it's been fun. So I'm still learning how to do it. It's no Rook, but it'll do. And for all of those who are going to comment on this and be like, they mail it. Yes, I know they mail it. We have beans in the house right now, but I don't know, mailing them. First of all, the bottles are just never the same. I always want someone to make it for me, essentially. It never tastes the same when we would get the bottles at home.
You can't coat the ice. That's my insider secrets.
There you go. And the concentrate just doesn't work for a mere mortal the way that it does when you go to the shop and get it. So I do know they mail it, but it doesn't work. So anyway, there you go. That's my wonder. Iced coffee.
My wonder is I'm in a show called A King for All Time. It's going up at the Hopkins Community Theater, July 16th, 17th, and 18th, and 24th and 25th. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the Friday, Saturday.
Yes, all our local listeners come see it.
All our local listeners come see it. I hesitate to say too many good things about it because we are only 3 weeks in, and I don't want to jinx myself, which is a very kind of artistic superstition of mine. But I'm really proud of the show so far. I think it's really, really shaping up to be something really special. And everyone in it, I mean, I happen to think I'm very good, but everyone in it is just incredible to see and work with and be around. So that's been my wonder for the past couple of weeks, actually, is what a gift to get to be back in the theater in the way that I've always wanted to be in the theater, which is on stage.
Awesome. All right. I don't really have any reading. Oh, do you have a listening?
I'm listening to the new Olivia Rodrigo album.
I suspect that was going to be her answer. That's what I figured up for it.
It's so good. I won't say a whole lot because I think you should just go listen to it. The one thing I will say it's a very Gen X, Gen Z thing of us, which is her great talent is finding universality in specificity. The songs on this album feel deeply personal to her, and also that they could be about anyone. I think specifically there's a song that was a single called The Cure, which is very specifically written about her own experience in a relationship. And my sister described it as feels like it could be written by a 20-year-old or a 45-year-old divorcee, because it's about what happens if you're in a romantic relationship. Why do you still feel bad about yourself? It's a really interesting. She's just I think she's like one of the best Gen Z songwriters. She really appreciates good songwriting and like the craft of making a good song. And she's a feature with Robert Smith.
I was going to say, is he on that song?
Yes. No, he's not on that chair. He's on a song called What's Wrong With Me that my sister described as turn the music up to drown out the sobbing, because it's in true The Cure fashion. You're like listening to it and you're like, this is kind of fun. And then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh no. So
this is devastating.
Check it out. You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love by Olivia Rodrigo. It is very good.
Excellent. All right. That's a perfect way to end. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget, if you haven't found us on Substack yet, go and subscribe to the Wonder in the Weeds Substack. And you'll find that podcast there, but also wherever else that you listen to podcasts, or the YouTube channel, Wonder in the Weeds. You can find us there. We'd love it if you like and subscribe and tell your friends all about it. Until next time, keep looking for the Wonder in the Weeds.
Take care of yourselves.
Bye.